Yeah, so hi all, a very good evening and welcome to the ninth week of live sessions for AI knowledge representation and reasoning. Um, so, am I audible and is the screen visible? Can you just confirm it once? Am I audible? Okay, thanks for confirming all with it. So, so this week we'll be discussing some questions from week 10 content, which is basically CD theory and some of the doubts that were raised in the previous live session. I have had some time to think about it, so we'll maybe discuss it towards the end. Um, okay, yeah, and yeah, thanks Naresh for confirming as well. So for let's first discuss the questions from week 10. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so week 10, as I said, is based mostly on CD theory, which is also a very well, it's a new topic, but it's relatively easier than the content we have had previously, and it's also a scoring area. So most of the questions we'll be seeing today will be in a way recall-based questions itself, because uh, that's the kind of questions usually uh, are from this part of the from this subtopic of the course. Anyway, so let's get started. Here is the first question. So this question asks us, a conceptualization in CD theory is which of the following? Okay, so I'll create a poll for this question, and in the meantime you can think about the options. Alright, so I've created the poll. You can share your thoughts over there. I'll give you a couple of minutes. Okay, so we already have one vote. We have one vote for options B, C, and D. Okay, so we have two votes for option B, C, and D now. Uh, that's great because B, C, and D are the correct options. Uh, so a conceptualization in CD theory is basically the equivalent of a well-formed formula in a formal logic. It's a description of a basic event or an action, and it's a description of a state in the domain. And the first option is not suited for this definition of a conceptualization because it's not relevant. Right? The process of devising a plan for a goal is not what is something that is relevant to a conceptualization in CD theory. So yeah, so I see that all three of you have voted for options B, C, and D, which is right. B, C, and D are the correct options. So great. Let's move on to the second question. So the second question tells us which of the following hold for the CD theory. Okay. And you have a couple of options given to you. The first option is whether every verb in English language is a conceptual action, whether nominal stands for objects and people. So there are five options given to you, and yeah, I'll let you go through the options, and meanwhile I'll create a poll for this question as well. So we already have a couple of votes. So there are two votes in favor of options B, C, and E, and there's one vote in favor of options B, C, and option D as well, in addition to B, C, and D. Right? Okay, so let's go through the options one by one. So every verb in English language as a conceptual action is false, because we know that there are some verbs that are not conceptual actions. Instead, they are rather, you could say, states, right? And which we'll see later down the line. There are some, let's say, some verbs like love or hate or kill. These are not exactly conceptual actions. Then the second option, which is nominal stand for objects and people, this is correct, right? This is directly from the lectures. Nominals do stand for objects and people, and so this is the correct option. And actions are acts done by nominals. This is also correct. So B, C are correct. Similarly, option E, a Tamil sentence can be mapped to CD theory. That is also correct. For any language that can be done. And about option D, dependency in CD refers to dependence on English grammar. This is not always true, right? So because of that, option D will be incorrect, and the correct options will be B, C, and E. Okay, so this was also a question directly from the lecture. So most of the questions in this topic would be like that, and that's why I said in the beginning that it's one of the scoring areas. So I would urge all of you to uh, maybe score as high as you can uh, in this particular assignment that you're going to deal with in this week. All right, so if that was clear, let's move on to the third question. So this is related to the program Marchi that we came across in the lectures, right? So these are some of the options given to you about the program Marchi, how it processes a natural language sentence, right? So once again, I'll let you go through the options while I create a poll. All right, so we have one vote already in. Um, so the one vote we have is in favor of options A, B, and C. So just a refresher before we discuss the options. So Margie was something that was developed by Goldman, Rieger, and Beesbeck. Um, Apologies if I'm mispronouncing any of the names. And it would make inferences based on the meaning of the input sentence using Rieger's inferencing program. Okay, so just a refresher. Let's get back to the question. So So the first option says it processed a natural language sentence by constructing a syntactic parse tree of the input sentence. This makes sense. So this would be a correct option. It identifies the concepts involved in the semantic representation. That also makes sense. So semantic, remember, relates to the meaning, right? So this would make sense. And option C is making inferences commonly associated with the concepts involved. This also fits in line with the short introduction that we just saw, this one, right? And option D would be incorrect because exploiting its common sense knowledge about the domain is not something that is relevant, right? So we're talking about a program basically that processes natural language sentences, and talking about common sense for that particular program is not something that is relevant, right? So option D would be incorrect. So many a times in questions like these, a good way to approach them is to actually eliminate the options that we can be sure are outright wrong, right? And D is one such option. And then whichever options are left, we can then think about those, right? So that is one way, a good way to approach such direct recall based or remembering based questions from the lectures. All right. So anything specific till now that we should reiterate, or should we move on to the next question? Okay, we'll move on to the next then. Thanks, Somil. Just to rehash for the new joinees. So basically this week we are covering questions related to week 10 content, right, which is CD theory, and it's mostly a very it's a new topic, but it's a relatively easier topic to uh, answer questions. Okay, so most of the questions that we'll be coming across will be remembering based questions, direct recall from the lectures, right? So this would be uh, yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Okay, then let's move on to the fourth question, which is this in front of you. So question 4 asks us a program constructing a conceptualization using 8 trans, and we are given 4 options, and which of them do you think would be relevant for this particular 8 trans, right? So remember, trans is kind of a transfer. There are different kinds of these transfers like A trans, P trans, M trans, so on and so forth. So this one asks us specifically about A trans. Um, so once again, I'll let you go through the options while I create a poll for this question. So we have a couple of votes in, and we have two votes each for options A, B, and B, C, right? So option B is common among these two votes that we have got, and option B says that identify the giver and the recipient, right? So let's just establish it now that B is in fact the correct option, right? Because A trans does identify the giver and the recipient of the transfer act or transfer operation, right? But think a bit more about options A and C. Okay, so remember this is A trans. There are other kinds of trans as well, right? So I'll let you think for a couple of more minutes, and then we'll discuss the answer. Yeah. So thanks for your messages, Arkadeep and Somin. So yeah, both of you are correct. A, B will in fact be the two correct options in this case because, so if you remember, option C says that infer that the object has been physically transferred. So whenever we talk about physical transfer, usually P trans is involved there, right? So when we talk about A transfer, it is usually about giving or buying something, right? So just a refresher from the lecture slides. So A trans basically is the transfer of an abstract relationship such as possession, ownership, or control, right? So some examples are give, take, or buy. Whereas P trans involves transfer of physical location of an object, right? Like go, put, things like that. And there are other such propel, move, and all. Right? So because of that, since in A trans there is not really this physical transfer, right? So option C would be incorrect, right? And option D is automatically incorrect because when we are talking about the act of transferring, it can't be possible that both the recipient and the giver now possess the object, right? So options A and B will be correct. It will infer that the object has a new owner because it is we are involving a transfer of something from one person to another person or from one object to another object, right? Suppose the statement is something like uh, a person A gave a pen to person B, right? So the pen will be transferred from person A to person B, right? So the object pen in this case will have a new owner, right? And we identify the giver and the recipient. Person A is the giver and person B is the recipient, right? So options A and B will be the correct options. So another piece of uh, like free suggestion is that so one of the ways to get a good grasp on the CD theory part of the course is that go through the option, not the options, the examples that are discussed in the lectures, right? So, Professor Deepak Kimani has discussed a number of examples in the lecture slides and the lecture videos. If you go through them, I think they are exhaustive enough that you will have a decent understanding of the series theory for your assignments and exams. All right, so should we move on to the next question then? All right.
Yes, sir. Let's move.
Okay, thanks Mohan and thanks Somil for the thumbs up again. All right, so here's the fifth question. Um, so here we are again talking about a different action, which is mbuild, right? The CD action mbuild, and which of these options do you think is relevant to this CD action mbuild? I'll once again let you go through the options while I create a poll for this question. Alright, so we have a couple of votes in. We have three votes, of which two are in favor of option A and one is in favor of option B. Right, so I'll give you a hint and I'll let you think a bit more about it. Right, so just look at the construct of this particular action name, right? So M build, right? So M is usually associated with memory and build means that we're trying to build something, right? So uh, try to infer something based on that. Basically, we are trying to construct something out of our memory, right? Uh, if I have to put it in a very simplified or crude manner. Yeah, so I'll let you think about the options a bit more and then we can discuss them. Alright, so let's have a refresher from the lecture slides. So here, as I've shown, the M-build action is basically the construction by an animal of new information from old information, right? So let's take the example of this thing. Imagine, right? So suppose you imagine that uh, you are on a beach, right? So when you imagine something like that, uh, you are already using some old information, which in this case, let's say, is your knowledge of what a beach is, right? There'll be sand, there'll be water, there'll be people over there, right? And then you imagine yourself uh, on that location, on the sand maybe, or in the water, right? So you are constructing new information from some pre-existing old information that you have, right? So with that example out of uh, now that we have discussed that example, let's revisit the options that we have. So the first option is can be used to identify a causal buildup in the story, right? This is not exactly relevant to what we are doing in mbuild, right? We are not really identifying a causal link to build up some story, right? What we are doing is can be used to represent an actor making an inference, right? So here it said that it's an animal. We can replace it by an actor basically, right? Construction by an animal or an actor of new information from old information. So basically what the actor is doing, it's making an inference based on the old information that he or she has, right? So B seems to be correct. C again is not relevant because a process of building a make file for the story is not something that is really relevant. First of all, make file, I'm not sure whether it's relevant at all. Uh, so if some of you would have been a bit familiar with programming, make file, especially in languages like C, uh, makefile is something that you use, but to compile your piece of code, but that is not something that we are doing over here, right? Um, so again, option C also doesn't seem to be a correct fit. The only option that we are left with is B. That seems to make sense, and that will be the correct option. Right? So the CD action M build can be used to represent an actor making an inference. Okay, so once again, to answer such questions, basically, if you see something specific being asked about something like mbuild or atrans or something, just quickly go back to your lecture slides, see wherever it is mentioned, right? And then answer based on that. That's the easiest way to answer such recall based questions. Or if you have already prepared your notes from the lecture slides, you can just refer to those as well. Okay, then should we move on to the next question?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thanks, Mohan. Um, okay, let's move on to the sixth question then. So this is a slightly different kind of a question. So here we are given a statement. Sneha bought an ice cream and ate it, right? And we are asked about some aspects of the CD representation of this statement. So you have some 6 options given to you, and I'll let you go through the options once again while I create a poll. Alright, so we have a couple of votes. We have three votes, and all three of them are in favor of options A, E, and F, right? So let's go through the options. So first, what we shall do is let's first of all eliminate all the options that we know for sure would be incorrect, right? So okay, so the statement that is given to us is Sneha bought an ice cream and ate it, right? So here we are given that Sneha bought something and then she ate it, but we are not given anything about how she bought or purchased that object, right? So options B, C, and D get eliminated outright. Like straight away they get eliminated because we are not told about the kind of transaction that Sneha does. We cannot say that it is an online transaction or it is a cash or it is a mobile phone based transaction, right? So B, C, and D are incorrect. We are left with options A, E, and F. Okay, so let's go through them one by one. So option A says that it would involve the CD representation of this statement would involve the use of A trans. So again, if you remember, A trans involves acts like giving or taking or buying, right? So here we have something bought, right? Something is being bought, right? So A trans would be involved, right? Sneha will buy an ice cream, right? So A trans will be involved. So A would be correct. Then let's look at option E. Would normally imply the use of P trans of the ice cream, right? So when the ice cream is being transferred from whichever, let's say whichever object ice cream was in initially to the mouth of this particular person who is eating the ice cream, there will be a physical transfer, right? So P trans of the ice cream will be involved. And then since there is an act of eating something involved, uh, the use of ingest by this actor Sneha would also be correct, right? So the correct options would be options A, E, and F. Okay, this was we have another vote in favor of AEF, and this was also a pretty straightforward question. Um, I'm assuming there are no doubts about this one. Um, if there are, please feel free to stop me. Thanks for the thumbs up, Somil. Let's then move on to the seventh question, which is about these specific kind of verbs like kill, hate, and love. Okay, and we are asked given a certain number of options, four options related to these verbs, and which of these do you think would be appropriate or relevant? Okay, so once again I'll create a poll quickly while you can go through the four options. All right. So again, we have a couple of votes in. We have 5 votes, out of which the majority, 3 of them, are in favor of options B and C, and 2 of them are in favor of only option B. Right? So okay, let's discuss the options one by one. Are acts in CD theory, right? Verbs like kill, hate, and love are acts in CD theory would be incorrect, because if you remember from the lectures, this heading itself gives you your answer. Love and hate are states, right? Not acts. Similarly, this is true for kill as well, right? So let's go back to the options. So option A will be incorrect. Option B will be correct. So verbs like kill, hate, and love are represented by states or state changes in CD theory, and so automatically option D will also become incorrect, right? Because if they are being represented by states, option D will automatically be incorrect. We are left with option C. So option C will in fact be correct, right? Because it does involve a causal relation in CD theory. Like verbs like kill, hate, and love, they do involve a causal relation, right? So options B and C would be correct, and which I think the majority of you do agree with. So that is great. All right then. Um, I'll move on to the next question then. Um, I hope this one is clear. The next question is kind of along similar lines, but with different kinds of verbs. So earlier we dealt with verbs like kill, love, and hate. Here we are dealing with verbs like remember and forget, right? So remember or recall that both these verbs have a common, have some kind of a common aspect to them, which is that they both somehow involve the use of a memory, right? Both remember and forget. So you forget something when you don't have it in your memory. You remember something when you recall it from your memory, right? So with that small hint, I'll let you go through the options while I create a poll for this question. Alright, so we have a couple of answers. So firstly, in the polls, we have 4 votes in the favor of options A and C. And then in chat, Arya says that A, C and option B are correct, right? So let's discuss the options one by one and let's see which of them are correct and which of them are incorrect, right? So the first option says verbs like remember and forget refer to the movement of information in between different compartments in memory models. This makes sense, right? Because as we discussed, remember and forget both involve the use of memory, right? Some aspect of the memory. So option A seems to make sense. Let's look at option C first. Requires the use of the CD action mtrans. So if you recall, M again refers to memory and trans as transfer. So if we revisit the lecture slides quickly, mtrans is the transfer of mental information between animals or actors or within an animal or within an actor. And there are memory partitions, right? There different examples are given, and remember is in fact one example of mtrans from long-term memory to conscious processor, which is something to say, which is to say something like, say, you somewhere in your brain you have it stored, like uh, today is one of your friend's birthdays, right? And you suddenly remember it, so you're kind of transferring that mental information about that birthday from your long-term memory to your conscious processor, and then you'll act on it. Will maybe wish your friend a birthday or buy him or her a gift, right? That is just an example of remembering something. Similarly for forget also. So mtrans. So option C does seem to be correct. Requires the use of a CD action mtrans. About option B, so here we are told p-trans, right? But we are not physically transferring anything. So if you recall, p-trans refers to physical transfer, right? But here we are doing a transfer of mental information, not a physical transfer. So option B would be incorrect, right? And along the same lines of reasoning, option D would also be incorrect because it does not involve deleting information in one location and storing it in another, right? This is also not making sense. So the correct answer would be options A and C. Okay, so this was also pretty straightforward. I hope the, the answers are pretty clear. Should we move on to the next question then? All right, thanks for the thumbs up, Somil. So the next question would be question 9, um, which is kind of based on this concept of expectations, right? So if you recall from the lectures, there was a certain segment where the professor discussed about stereotypical knowledge and making conclusions based on expectations, right? So for example, if you were told that it is cloudy, uh, then based on the stereotypical knowledge that you or we have about certain situations where it is cloudy, it is likely to expect that it will rain, right? But then it may not happen, right? It can just be cloudy for some random reason, right? uh, so and also often jokes make use of such kind of things, so they utilize on uh, such stereotypical knowledge about events, and then they twist it around to throw people off and like, make them laugh, right? So here also we are given some statement. The statement is Luke walked into a bar, right? So just based on uh, some stereotypical knowledge that you have about such situations, which of these options do you think we can expect given this statement? So I'm not creating a poll for this one. I'll let you just think on it and then you can write your answers in the chat box maybe. All right, so we have a couple of answers. So thanks Mohan, Somil, Arya, and Mr. Kamlakar for your answers. So all of you agree that option A would be something that could be expected, and I also agree with you that if you're given Luke walked into a bar, it is likely to be expected that Luke wanted a drink, right? And then Mohan also suggested another option, which is option B, which can also be expected because in a bar you can also expect to have some kind of food items, right? So both options A and B can be expected. About option C, Luke lives near a bar. While this is kind of ambiguous, but then still you could say that since we are given Luke walked into a bar, right? Not like Luke drove into a bar or something. Although it is a bit kind of a bit of a stretch, I agree. But what the point I'm trying to drive is based still just based on some typical knowledge, we could say that we could still expect that Luke lives near a bar, right? So options A, B are something that we can definitely expect. Option C is something that we may expect, right? Option D is something that we can definitely say that we do not expect, right? Just based on this particular information that is given to us. So for the sake of simplicity, let's just say that we are considering options A, B, and C to be expected, right? So this is not an individual question. So we'll discuss another question in relation to this, and then you will see that how our expectations can change with the addition of new information, right? So on the related note, so first of all, uh, is the explanation clear until this point? Any confusion about what we just discussed?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's great. So let's move on to the 10th question, which is very related to the ninth question. So here, in addition to Luke walked into a bar, we are also told that this bar is in a galaxy far, far away, right? Now, which of these do you think we can expect?
What does option E mean?
Uh, yeah, thanks for uh, the question, Mr. Kamlakar. So this is just something that I just created, a question that I just created and threw in for those who might be uh, interested in this fiction called Star Wars. So this is related to that. Okay. Uh, so Jedi Master doesn't really mean anything. It's basically a fictional thing uh, related to that particular story. So what I wanted to uh, convey through this particular these two questions, question 9 and 10, is that so in question 9 we were given that the only thing that we were given is Luke walked into a bar, and based on that we made three conclusions or three things that we could expect, right? Here additionally we are also given that the bar is in a galaxy far, far away, which is basically the tagline of this thing, the Star Wars, right? So in addition to options A, B, and C that we were expecting previously, we can also expect that Luke is not a human. Luke is an alien because we're talking about a different galaxy or some different universe or something. And then because this is related to that Star Wars, we can also expect that Luke is a Jedi Master, right? So in this case, because of the addition of this new information, we can expect new things. This is the basically the point that I wanted to convey through these two questions. So how many of you are familiar or have watched Star Wars? I hope some of you have. So Somil, how will option C can be expected? Let's say that uh, you use the stereotypical information that since Luke walked into a bar, right? You could say that Luke would be residing somewhere in the nearby location of that where that bar or
Wait,
eatery is located, right?
is it not conflicting? The bar is in a galaxy far, far away,
Mm-hmm.
and Luke lives near a bar. This is a relative statement, is it? Far away.
Don't get thrown off by this far, far away statement. That is just from the tagline of the movie. What this basically means is that both Luke and the bar in a galaxy that is far, far away from us. Okay, not that Luke is far, far away from the bar.
But it gives an opportunity to read like that.
Yeah. There is. So maybe I could have chosen better statements. I got kind of. Uh, I just wanted to make it a bit
Yeah, that's
more
okay.
fun for the Star Wars fans. But yeah, I hope you get the point though. That uh,
And similarly,
yeah.
anyone walks into the bar,
Mm-hmm.
and we can't tell that one a dog is walking in the bar or anything non-human is not walking into the bar. So, Luke is not a human; is an option.
Yeah. So we are making use of this particular information that it's in a galaxy, right? In a different galaxy. So we can expect that it is an alien, right?
Alien. Okay.
Yeah.
Alright. Okay.
Okay. Um, yeah.
So
Thanks for.
JD Master is a part of an alien, is it?
Sorry.
JD Master is also a part of an alien, is it?
Sorry. Can you come again?
JD Master is a part of an alien, is it?
Uh, yeah. I guess. In a way, you could say that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But in exams, if you get an ambiguous questions like that,
No. In exams, you will not be given such ambiguous questions. Yeah. In exams, you will have clear-cut answers to them. You can be
okay.
assured of that.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So with that out of uh, the window, I wanted to. So we are done with the questions from week 10. But I just wanted to give a brief demonstration on these two things called ELIZA and ChatGPT. So one of them you may or may not be familiar with. It's quite the buzzword these days, especially ChatGPT. So if since in the lectures we saw a number of such machines, right? So one of the questions that we dealt with also was Margie, right? So we saw some of the programs, right? Where Ellie, Margie, Babel, Sam, from so on and so forth. Eliza is also something. Uh, Let me just search for it and then I can demonstrate it better to you. So if you have access to a laptop or something with you, you can also search along with me. Just search Eliza NLP, right? Uh, Let me first just open the Wikipedia page for this one. So it's basically a very early natural language processing program created very early on from 1964 to 1966 by Joseph Weizenbaum. And this is something that this is an example of a conversation with Eliza, right? So you give it some prompts and based on certain pattern matching algorithms, right? So it basically just does simple pattern matching and then it gives you certain replies and it might seem initially that it's like a real person is talking, but once you question it start questioning it a certain way, you will very quickly realize that it's actually not human, but just a computer program, right? So I just wanted to demonstrate that. So if you have access to a laptop, you can open up this link called Eliza Chatbot Therapist, and here is the prompt, right? So maybe we'll just enter hello, right? And it will reply us back with something. It will say that it is nice to be chatting with you, right? So till this point, it seems like this is some normal person that is conversing with us, right? But the moment we start asking all sorts of things that is difficult to answer, let's say we ask, who are you? So it asked something like, it replied with, why are you interested in whether or not I am, right? So this is not something that you would expect a human to answer, right? Let's ask something that's even difficult for humans to answer. Let's suppose we asked, how was the universe created? So you see how it evaded answering the question and instead just also one thing if you notice is if we ask confusing things, it's mostly answering in terms of questions itself, right? When we asked it who are you, it instead in terms of framed its reply in terms of another question. Similarly here also, what answer would please you the most? Let's ask another thing. So see how it is trying to evade away from answering the question, right? Let's move on to something else, right? So like this, if you just question it a bit more, you'll quickly realize that it is just a computer program, not exactly a human therapist or psychotherapist, right? So this is an example of a very old natural language processing program, Eliza. You can play around with it whenever you are free. Um, this has also been referenced in several pop culture uh, uh, instances. You can go through these things later on. So this was about um, Eliza. What Chat GPT does is, so how many of you first of all have heard about Chat GPT?
Yeah, heard about the noise. Yeah, a lot of things are happening, but never attempted to use it.
Yeah, so basically what Chat GPT is, in very very simple terms, it is kind of a question answering, again a program, but way more intelligent than well, again I'm using the word intelligent very loosely over here, but than something like Eliza that we just saw, right? And the reason here is that it uses some kind of uh, artificial intelligence and machine learning techniques. It's been trained on huge enormous quantities of data available. So when you ask something to chat gpt, it almost seems like a human only is answering your questions, right? And so people have also been trying to use it to, let's say, even write computer programs or trying to understand computer programs. So I think it's free, if I'm not wrong. You can in fact also try to uh, use it. So I'm currently not registered with it, so I'm not going to open it up. But you can try it up later on and see, play around with it. How, and you can see the difference between Eliza and ChatGPT. So basically, these are two examples that I just wanted to show you. Just it's not that it's related to the course content, but just for those of you who might be a bit curious for practical aspects of natural language processing systems or natural language understanding systems. But yeah, having said that, it even though the replies from ChatGPT are like a human answering, uh, it is not actually a human, right? So at the end of the day, it is still a computer program. Yeah, so that is just something that I wanted to make you aware of for those of you who might be a bit curious. Right. So that brings us to an end of the questions from uh, week 10 content, and I'll quickly address one query that was raised by, if I remember correctly, Orkodeep in the last uh, live session, which was um, why in this particular week 8 assignment, question 6 and 4, if I remember correctly, why is option C correct and not A? Uh, do I remember the query correctly, Orkodeep?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, thanks. So I thought a bit about it, and also last time we were discussing that it might have to do something with the positioning of the quantifiers. So if you look at option C first here, so we are asked to define the persons who own car, right? So for all x, person who owns car x is equivalent to x is a person, and there exists something y, which is a car, and x owns y, right? So this makes sense. If we look at option A now, this means that for all x, a person who owns car x is POC x is basically equivalent to, if we keep this for all x over here, this will mean that every x is a person and everything owns something, and that something is a car. Okay, so this is not exactly a statement that is given to us, right? Person who owns cars. So just because option C is better suited to the statement that is given to us, I think it is the appropriate choice. And similarly for question 4 as well. Option C is better suited for the statement some students enroll for all courses, right? That's why it's the correct option.
Would you mind, can I add something to it?
Um, okay, let's go through the, so here the statement given is some students enroll for all courses, right? So option C tells us there exists X such that X is a student, and for all Y, um, such that Y is a course, that X student will be enrolling in a particular course, right? So if we read it from left to right, it is that some students, because there is a there exists over here, some students, and for all courses, student X enrolls in that particular course, right? So this seems to be very similar to this particular statement, whereas this option A is kind of confusing because you have student X and course Y together instead of course Y and enrolls have been together, right? So here you have some student and all courses. So if you have some student and all courses, this implies that X enrolls in Y. I agree that this is kind of similar, but option C is better suited. That's why option C is the correct option. Okay. Similarly for,
Still, I couldn't understand why option is wrong.
okay, so one thing you could do is maybe go through the different kind of FOL representations of English sentences that we dealt with in the lectures as well as in the live sessions, and then try to build up these corresponding English sentences from these FOL representations that are given to you over here in this particular question, the different options, right, in all the questions, and then maybe it will become a bit more clearer. Okay. So it is
It's
more a question of practice and what sounds better, what sounds more similar to the expression that is given to you. Uh, and yeah, eventually I think it will become clearer. Or if you still have some confusion, maybe you can also raise this doubt in the discussion forum, and maybe Bhaskar and sir can also address it in maybe a different approach than what I am currently understanding.
okay.
Okay.
Sir, would you mind if I talk?
Yeah, sure, sure. Go ahead.
Okay. This question,
Mm-hmm.
4, was just an opposite thing to what was presented in last TA session. That is, this is week 8. In
Okay.
week 7, we talked of, here you are telling all students enroll, sorry, some students enroll for all courses is given here. But in the previous session, we have shown all students enroll for some courses. and you have given the answer there. When I looked at this, I
Uh-huh.
saw that some and all are interchanged. So using the answer given over there, I interchanged some and all words. All comes with implication and some goes with and symbol. So I
Yes.
interchanged the implication and symbol over there, and also interchanged the existential and universal quantifier. Then I ended up with the option E. So I thought this is the right answer anyhow. I got it and I picked it up. And the next morning, when I have seen this option C was given, then I again started thinking. When we say all men are mortal, we say man implies mortal.
Mm-hmm.
When we say all mortal are men, then mortal implies man. So going by that, when I saw this one, enrolls for all courses. Courses have all before that. So that
Yes.
means courses implies enroll has to be taken. That gave me a clue that option C should come there.
No, see,
I could not.
all courses here, all courses means that there will be one universal quantifier and that will be associated with the variable representing the courses, which is true for both options A and C.
Yeah.
Uh,
That's it.
yeah, but yeah, so again, once again, so to me, option C sounds more similar to the statement exact that is given to us. So what I would say is that approach that you are taking might be a bit risky in the sense that you're given one statement and you get one FOL representation for it, and then if there is some a twist around to that statement, then it's better to start from a clean slate for each particular sentence. Okay, so don't just
Okay.
take up one representation and change some certain things from it and get another representation for another sentence. So that might have some erroneous components. So it's better to always start from, if for each new sentence, to get the representation, start from scratch, right? So
I agree with you, sir.
yeah, so that might be one thing, but yeah, I would still encourage, if someone has not already asked this in the discussion forum, to raise this particular doubt in the to Bhaskaran sir, and maybe he can give a better explanation than me, maybe.
While we are talking about these column functions,
Mm-hmm.
there they have given we can push out universal quantifier out when x is independent of y. So I don't know, since such statements are not there, maybe this pulling out of y out may not be. That is one more
Yeah,
thought I had in my
yeah,
mind.
that is a valid thought. Um, yeah, yeah, but once again, I'll prefer if Bhaskaran sir maybe himself answers this question, because I think he
Okay.
might have framed the question himself. So I'm not
At
sure,
least
but
in one of the session, I request Bhaskaran sir to come for 5 minutes so that we can see his face.
yeah, for
Otherwise, it
sure,
is like Chat GPT.
very true. Yeah, I'll request sir, if both Bhaskaran sir and Professor Deepak Kemani, if they are free, uh, maybe in the last session, I'll try to bring them. Yeah,
Sure, sir. Okay.
yeah.
That's all about the course material for this week, sir.
Yeah, that's all we had to discuss from my side. So if you want to leave, you are always free to leave. If you want me to discuss something else, I'll be here for a while. So please let me know if there is something specific that we should get into.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks a lot for attending.
Thank you.
Mr. Redvis, good evening.
Hi Raghupati. Hi, good evening.
Yeah, whether we, so far we have not spent some time to listen to the videos. Only with
Okay,
the help of the material we were able to do the assignments.
okay.
We don't get a coherence, that is a complete understanding about that.
Okay.
Now, what we feel is whether my question is if I straight away follow the 10th week or 11th week, whether I will able to follow it or I have to go and start reviewing right from week one onwards. How the continuity of this will be?
So if you have time and if you intend to like get a certification and like appear for the exams, I would
Mm.
suggest that you do go through all the videos right from week one, right? Um,
Okay.
but if that is not your intention, if you want to talk like let's say you're talking about week 10, right? So week 10 has so cd theory is week 10 basically deals with cd theory, and some of it has been covered in week 9, some of it has been covered in week 10. So then in that case you'll have to maybe identify which are the portions or which are the videos that talk about this particular concept that you specifically want to learn about, and then watch only those videos. But then yeah, uh, for attempting the exam and answering the questions for getting the certificates and all, I would strongly suggest that you should watch all the videos.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
sure.
Any different parts, kind of things? The first 3 weeks will deal about this. Next 3 weeks about 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah, sure. So if you just go to the course page, right?
Hmm.
Maybe I'll
No,
share it.
my intention is anyway we have to do the full course for the taking up the exam. I am aware of it.
Mhm.
Now I would like to get input from you whether now this 3 weeks I would go along with the assignments on daily basis if I see one or two videos, so that I will go along with this the week schedule.
So which weeks are you specifically talking about? Like,
Now the current week is 10th week, no?
yeah.
This 10th week content now. Then next week I will do 11th week content, and then thereafter 12th week. And parallelly, based on the time availability, I will review the first week from first week onwards.
Right. So basically, week 10, as I said, so the last two videos of week 9 are
Hmm.
somewhat directly related to the content of week 10. Right? So I would
Okay.
suggest
Okay.
go through that. Then,
Hmm.
sorry about that. Yeah. So week 11 is somewhat a kind of a thing on its own, but it still has some relations to the content discussed in week 10, right? So here, for example, you discuss something like scripts and knowledge structures or SAM. Here you also discuss, we also cover a different kind of knowledge structures called frames. Yeah, so week 10 basically talks about scripts, week 11 will cover a bit of frames, and week
Hmm.
12 I'm not exactly sure what content is there in week 12, but you'll get to know soon. So I think
Hmm.
there is some kind of a connection from each week, right? So
Okay.
if you are specifically talking about weeks 10 and 11, then yeah, you have to cover a bit of week 9, week 10, and week 11.
And simply we cannot get the whole subject based on the material available. We should only listen to the video, or how is the case?
I mean, different people prefer different mediums. So, I, as a student, when I did the course, I always preferred listening to the video lectures because that seemed a bit more interactive than simply reading through the material. But then, yeah, it
Okay.
depends on the person. So, if you feel comfortable reading the material itself, then you can go
Hmm.
with it. Whatever you feel, if you're able to understand the concepts, good. Then, yeah, anything that works for you.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Rishab.
Sure. Thanks for asking.
Yeah.
So Arya had asked something. So from 10 assignments, I have solved only two. Will I be eligible? So Arya, sorry, I'm not very much aware of these logistics about the certifications. It'll be better if you ask it in the discussion forum. So maybe some of your friends who are appearing for the exam might be able to answer it, or someone from the course team might be able to better answer it.
So it doesn't depend on the single week assignments. So they'll be taking best of 8 weeks marks and they'll be calculating for 25. So if they are performing only for 1 week for the worst, they'll just exclude it and take the other best scores.
Okay, I get it. So yeah, thanks Shiva. So yeah, Arya, I hope that Shiva's reply answers your question to some extent. If you still have any doubts, feel free to post your queries regarding the certification and all in the discussion forum, and someone or the other will definitely answer it. or you can always check the course information page, this about the course or announcements. So you might find something relevant over there as well.
So as of now, I was raised a question in an interview stating what's the difference between the Manhattan distance and Euclidean distance.
Okay.
So I got pretty much stuck over there just because in the other course Deepak Timani sir takes, he'll be giving the definition of Manhattan distance and Euclidean, but not the differences between both. Is
Okay.
it possible to
So
get an idea about those?
yeah, so I'll just quickly draw something. Okay, so I'll try to draw a coordinate system. So let's say this is the origin 0 comma 0. Okay, let's say this is 1 comma 1. Let's say this, no, this is not 1 comma 1. This will be 1 comma 0.
1,
Yeah, this will be,
0, 1.
yeah, and this will be 1 comma 1. Now if you are asked about the Manhattan distance between 0 comma 0 and 1 comma 1, that would simply be mod of 1
0
minus
minus
0.
1 plus 1 minus 0 plus again 1 minus 0.
Yeah, right, which is 2. Whereas if you have to find the Euclidean distance, that would be root over of, right, so this will be root 2. So there's the difference. So is this what you were asking for, or you were asking for something like some specific definition?
Theoretical difference between both.
Okay, so you could think of it in this way. So what you are doing for, let me use blue for Manhattan. You are going in steps which are left, right, and top down. Right. If when you are talking about Manhattan, you are taking steps that are like this, or this, or this, or this. Right. So basically, when you want to go from 0, 0 to 1, 1, what you are doing is you are moving 1 unit in this direction, then 1 unit in the top direction. So basically 1 plus 1, which gives you 2.
Two. Okay.
Okay. Whereas in Euclidean case, let me use red for that, you are straight away going from 0 to 1, not going in this particular kind of steps.
Okay, so in Euclidean, it's not restricted to an motion like straight for it can move in any direction.
Yeah, so this has to do with something called norms, uh, NORMs, RMS norms, right? So you Manhattan distance is basically based on L1 norm, and Euclidean distance is based on L2 norm. So if you want, you can get into a bit more details of it. Just search it up. The Wikipedia page or any relevant article that discusses norms will give you some better insights into how exactly these are defined, or in general what is an LP norm, how it is defined.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. I hope that helps.
Thank you, sir.
Sure.
Sir, in week 9,
Hmm.
can you look into question number 11 and 12? Uh, I've spent a lot of time in trying to understand how to do this tableau method. It goes by using NNF on the core, and then started adding the things. But I repeatedly heard those lecture where the professor was explaining the concept based on the example.
Yeah.
Finally, I could not clearly understand what exactly is the difference between question number 11 and question number 12.
Okay. So
In
we.
week number 9, I posted it in the group, and
Okay.
Bhaskaran sir has asked to uh, draw the tableau myself and send it. I felt like it is beyond my capability to draw the tableau for these kind of questions.
So no, don't worry about like drawing the exact thing. So if you have some you might have worked something out in your, let's say, rough notebook or something like that, right? For solving these questions, just share those steps with over there when where Bhaskaran sir has asked you to share it, and then he can maybe point you to some specific things that you might be like getting confused in, or going wrong in, or going correct in, and that may
Okay.
help you to correct those particular steps, especially.
Okay.
Yeah, I
So
agree that this ALC tabular method is not kind of, it is a bit confusing. Even get confused most of the times when I have to deal with any example dealing with ALC tabular method. But yeah, since you have already asked Bhaskaran sir, I'll let him address it. Then
okay.
maybe like give you the wrong answer.
because because this week assignment is getting closed now. Since I have to focus on the answers, I'm trying to answer. I have not tried to answer them. Maybe after on Thursday I'll sit and work it out.
Yeah, sure, that would be great. And another advantage is that when you post in the discussion forum, maybe more it can reach more people than uh, us having a discussion over here. Is what I feel.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay then. Um, all right. I'll still stay back for some time. If you have something specific, please feel free to let me know. Otherwise, you're free to leave. Thanks a lot for attending, and we'll meet next week. Okay, I guess if there are no further uh, Chinese or questions, then maybe we can close the session for today. So once again, thanks for attending, and let's meet next week.